Denise is saying go. So I will say hello. This is Clark Farley.
Hi, I'm Denise Fazzaro, and we're live from Randall Realtors in Westerly, Rhode Island. We invite you to spend the next 20 minutes with us as we share insights, experiences, tips, and tactics acquired over many years of experience. Our goal to help you be a more educated buyer and seller.
See, that's actually the bar. You know, you set a bar for a goal. Denise's intro like that, because I have it here and I couldn't read it like that more than once. I see the live sign. So just to get us started, we talk always a little bit about what got us here, and what got us here is that over the years, Denise and I have worked together on certain projects. We work very separately on a lot of the business that we do, but the things that we do together have been the marketing of properties, and also that brings us to the present day. And you have to pardon me, I seem to be speed rapping, as we used to say back in the day. And so I will try to slow myself down a bit and say hello to Emma out there. Hi, Emma. And anybody else is out there. You guys want to comment back and say, hi, Clark? Can I see a hi, Clark, in the comment? Okay.
We do have there is a comment place for you to put questions
Or hi, Clark.
Or hi, Clark.
Okay.
So if you have any questions while we're talking, please feel free to put them there. We'd love this to be a little more interactive.
Well, yeah, and that's jumping ahead of what we usually talk about in the beginning.
Yeah, but you wanted them to comment, so I had to tell them where the comment box was.
I hope they do. Gee.
Yeah.
But I've managed to slow myself down a little bit. We talk often about your questions are important. Suggestions about future topics we'll definitely welcome those. But you know, if somebody out there has a situation or a real-time example, by all means chat that thing in, because we'll take that. And we've got 20 minutes to share our experience and skills, as Denise said in the intro. But the idea of these 20-minute things, only 20 minutes, is to take a chunk of the process. You know, when you're tonight is selling a house or buying a house, but we're not trying to do the whole thing. It's just a chunk of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to leave me out here?
I am going to leave you out there.
Okay.
So this week, we're going to be talking about what's the story with all this paperwork. I just want to list my house. But before we get to that, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Share us, like us. Please tell your friends about us, especially if you have a friend who might have some interest in real estate now or in the nearby future. We are posting these videos on YouTube, so you can go back and watch other videos that we've done previously. This is our 5th one. So there are 4 others out there on YouTube and also on our Facebook page, which is the Coastal New England Real Estate Team. In the chat box, I've also put our email address. So if you find a subject you might want to see or hear about another time, just put it in the chat box or send us an email.
Yeah, on that YouTube thing, because we kind of divide the labor of this project certain ways. I've been working on the YouTube end, and it will serve as a place to go back for reference, but we'd both like you to go there and subscribe. We have 4 episodes, and if you're hearing me and are willing to do that, you already know what's on them. But the subscribe thing is big at YouTube, so do us a favor. Go over and subscribe to that.
That's right, subscribe to that. So on to the subject of paperwork. So we don't want our sellers to be stressed. So we're going to talk about how it is like when we go sit at your dining room table or your kitchen table and we talk to you about the paperwork that you need to fill out in order to get your house. Yes, kitchen is usually the place.
Yeah.
In order to get your house on the market. So the first thing that... What's that?
I agree. I was agreeing with you.
Okay.
with the stress piece, because that's a theme here.
Yes. Almost every show we're going to talk about stress. Because the reason for doing this is we want you to reduce stress as much as possible, and knowledge does that.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
There's a wise old man once said, familiarity is the scourge of stress.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, don't cancel.
Cancel. Oh, I just almost messed us up here. Um, don't touch your mouse, Denise. So some of the paperwork you have to fill out, one of the first things that you will fill out when you meet us is called a relationship disclosure. Basically, it's something that's required by our realtor system to explain to you how we work for you. And I'm not going to go into all the explanation because we can go have other sessions just on the exact details of the paperwork. But basically, it's a disclosure. It's not a contract that explains that we are your agents, that we're acting in your best interest.
Can we do the thing about dividing all of this? Here's the pile. I get to waive it. Here's a pile of paperwork. Typical to Rhode Island. If you're in a different state, Connecticut's, the forms might be labeled differently, but the idea is the same, which is when you're a seller going on with the market, there are two categories.
Buyer and seller's agent.
That, and there's also the categories of paperwork that say disclosures.
Oh, yeah.
And the contract to get somebody to market the property for you. So Denise, you want to start with the disclosure side?
So the disclosures are basically something that you as the seller have to fill out. It's not something that we as the agents fill out. But don't panic because it's what you know about your property. So it is quite lengthy. In Rhode Island, it's 6 pages long. I think Connecticut's is a little bit shorter. And they ask you questions like what year the house was built and how old your roof is, what your heating system is, when it was last serviced. Things that you may know off the top of your head or you may not know. Maybe you've been in the house 30 years and you can't remember the last time you put the roof on. You know you did it back in a ways, but you're not quite sure when. If you don't have knowledge of it, you just put unknown.
Yeah.
There's a roof up there, we know that. Buyers will have home inspections, but this information that you provide on the seller's disclosures will give the buyer some information about the property. What I like to tell my sellers is, if you disclose it on there, it helps take it out of the negotiations later. If you tell them that your roof is 25 years old, then they know they're buying a house with a 25-year-old roof, which is not a bad thing, but it's something that they might want to be aware of.
Yeah, and when you look at this form, you'll see it if you're in Rhode Island. You'll see something comparable in other states, and it sounds intimidating in the beginning, but that's the idea of what we're doing here.
Right.
Look, see that? Okay, now when you get ready to sell your house and we're sitting across the kitchen table trying to move the dishes out of the way, you'll say, oh, I know that form.
That's right. So that's the one form. And then the other disclosure form is called the seller's lead disclosure. That's required in all states, I believe, in different formats, but it is a requirement that you either know you have lead in your house or you don't know you have lead in your house.
Yeah.
If you don't know you have lead in your house, you check one box. If you know you have lead in your house, you check the other box. So basically you just are disclosing whether there's lead in your house or not. If you don't know, there's a box for that. And that's the simple form on the disclosures. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not that much. It's just what you know about your property.
Well, and not to reduce the implied stress is that no buyer is ever going to say, okay, I don't need to do inspections because I've got your disclosures. It's helpful. Age of roof is a big one.
Yes.
I always find when a buyer is looking at it, because those are simple mechanical, 25-year-old roof. Okay, probably got to
Well,
be
septic
budgeting.
too. Septic
Septic,
too. Whether
big.
you have a cesspool, a septic system, city sewer, city water, all those things are, those are good things for a buyer to know going into it, making an offer.
So nobody is going to, and don't worry that a buyer is going to, they'll look at it and they'll use it, but they're not going to not inspect on the basis of that.
The only exception to seller disclosures is if it's an estate sale or I believe foreclosures, right?
Yeah.
We don't, those are not required in that case. In an estate sale, obviously the person who's selling the house didn't live
Has
there.
trouble writing
and
now at this point.
That's not funny.
No, it's not.
Anyway,
I
that,
apologize to
yeah, that
all
wasn't
of the
funny.
estate
That was very
people.
dark humor.
It was.
Yeah. So anyway, those are two exceptions to needing a disclosure.
And that brings home the idea of what this is about for you, the seller, is that, okay, that's, we've been saying the best of your information, but if you had a bank-owned property or you were buying one, they say, hey, we don't have one. It doesn't stop the process.
No.
Because you're going to do your inspections anyway.
Right, right.
So, so those are most of the disclosures in most of the states. And I always like at this point to say something to the effect that the topic is real estate from a buyer perspective, from a seller perspective, in Lapland or in Rhode Island. They're very similar places. But the idea is that the core principles will be applicable, and Denise is playing with the mouse. So listen for, if you're someplace other than Rhode Island, know that the principle is the same. Oh, you haven't done, is that a contract or is that
No,
a
we're doing the
disclosure?
contract last.
Okay. So the last disclosure,
No, this isn't really a disclosure. So the one form that we both are going to fill out together is
you,
the seller and the sales agent is going to be the Rhode Island or Connecticut, whatever, listing data form. That's the form that allows us to put information on MLS, on our computer system that does our marketing and sells your house for you, basically. So this is a form where it asks if you're leaving your appliances, what appliances are you leaving? What if you have a bathtub or a shower stall? What's your fixtures that you might be leaving? If you're what your living area is, and did we get that information from you or did we get that information from the town? Typically, a seller's agent, listing agent, will walk around the house probably with you and fill in the little boxes that are on this form and ask you questions that we may not know the answer to, because it is your house after all, so you probably know a little bit more about it than we do.
And on behalf of future agents in the future, if they call you up a day later and say, oh, by the way, was that floor in the bathroom vinyl or ceramic? That happens.
It does happen.
Don't blame your agent.
Yeah, we look at a lot of houses. I sometimes can't remember what the fireplace was. Was it granite? Was it marble? Was it gas? Was it wood? So these are all questions that are on this form, and this is the form that when we put it into the computer from this form, that's what's going to show up on the internet. Now there are some mandatory things we have to put in there, like the square footage.
Taxes.
And the taxes.
So
but there are some things that we don't have to put in there. But if you want a good representation on MLS, I at least always try, I'm sure you do too, always try to fill in as much as possible, because the more information you can give a buyer who may be sitting home at 1 o'clock in the morning looking for a house, the better.
Pro tip there, when it comes to, when you mentioned taxes, is that that's a mandatory field. Not everyone, unless you just got your quarterly bill, is aware of it. So that's the kind of information you can gather ahead of, once you know you're going to be sitting down with your listing agent. Get that kind of documentation out. You had mentioned earlier today heating bills. If you have accurate heating bills,
for a year, for the last year.
Because a lot of these disclosures, I think, are part of selling the property. I mean, you're giving the facts as presented, but if you can say that my house cost X number of dollars to heat, and it's a good number, then that's not a bad thing.
That's right. And if it's not a good number, it's still good to know.
And the paperwork, the dog ate the oil receipts.
There's one field on here that I like to talk to my clients about. It's the description field. It's what we write on MLS about your property. And typically I don't fill this out when I'm sitting with you. What I do is I ask my clients, what is it about this house that made you buy it? And what is it about this house that you're going to miss the most? And so those are the questions I ask, and I write little notes in the comments section. And then once the pictures come back, because we do, in our company anyway, we use professional photographers. So once the pictures come back and I'm putting it all together, I then write the comments that are going to be on your listing and
the MLS
and all that. Right, they go out on all of the websites. Okay, so that's the disclosure, the data form that we do together.
Speaking of listings, Denise, that's
Yes.
a segue.
Yes.
There's a listing form right here on the desk. You can't see it, but I can. And the listing form, listing agreement, is you're engaging a broker to market and sell your house. It's essential because you need to have them describe the terms and conditions of your engagement. And I'm getting clunky on that. You want to jump in on that? Getting kind of clunky on the word.
So the listing agreement basically points out who you are and what brokerage that you're listing with. It is not between you and the agent. It's between you and the brokerage.
Unless the agent's a one-man shop.
Unless the agent's a one-man shop. But it's between, but even then it's in his brokerage name. It's not in his name.
But I sometimes point that out because some companies are large, like Randall is a large multi-office, multi-state company. Others are either one-person shop, a one-person shop, or I think even some of the 100% commission brokerages have a one-person Agent Smith. That's a joke. It's a reference to Agent Smith is listing it. They're in the office, but it's all to them. And they share it, of course, as we do. So who's on the top line?
So who's on the top line typically would be the brokerage.
Yeah.
And then we have to our next section would be about what are we selling. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The next section describes your property.
Yeah.
It describes the address. Yeah. It describes where we can find it in the what town and city it's in.
Yeah. And the term,
state.
And the term of the listing too.
And the term of the listing. So for how long, what the day we're going to start the listing, and the day the listing will end. And that is going to be we're going to go into this form in depth on another show. We're just giving you an overview of the listings now. So as to how you determine that time frame, all agents are going to tell you a little bit something different and why. So we will go into that another time, and I'll tell you what I tell people, and Clark will tell you what he tells people. But that number those dates are flexible, of course. And also we are going to, we're fine. The form also goes into price. What do you want to ask for your house? I don't want to mess with it because then I might lose it again.
Okay.
So what do you want to ask for your house? Well, if you've had a good agent, you should already have an idea in your head of what the value of your property, what your agent thinks your property's worth.
That's 2 shows worth.
That's absolutely another show. So basically, you and your agent will discuss it, and you'll come up with a number that goes on this form.
And the rest are like housekeeping issues with MLS, lockboxes,
signs on the property,
yeah,
and those kind of things. I think the important thing is there's questions there about marketing, where you want it marketed. You have a right to say no to things if you don't want it in certain places that we as an MLS market to. Also, it explains how we pay other brokerages, how our brokerage pays other brokerages if they have the buyer for your house.
Which brings us to commission, which is the other key element in this. If you're hiring somebody to do a job, you have to talk about compensation. I'm kind of bullish on that, the listing agreement, because I view it as one of the few cases to where you can have an agreement to provide services that's as close to guaranteed as you'll find. And that means you as a seller will pay when we're successful but not before, meaning at the closing.
Right.
It isn't even, I'll pay you before the closing. At the closing, you have closing documents. They account for all of the monies. The commission is there, and it gets transferred to your broker, listing broker, and all. But only if you get there. And you get there because all of your needs are met for this particular thing. So
Exactly. If your needs aren't met, then we don't get paid.
yeah, and that's it's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. So
19.
what?
19. So that is about it for this evening.
Yes, it is. Before we go, I thought of this afternoon. It was meant to be a surprise, but I'll do it anyway because I told Denise about some of the
30
fun
seconds.
things of. I've got a timer too. She says I have 30 seconds to say the coolest name of a house I've done listing on is Hell Hollow Road. It's in Connecticut. You can look it up. I recommend you look it up because you may not believe it. But the idea of some of the fun things about this business.
Mine is only a name I like, which was Schmuckanuck. I just like that
Oh
word.
yeah, who doesn't like that? That's an inside joke, by the way, for anybody in Rhode Island, because Denise here, did not pronounce it correctly.
I didn't.
By the spelling. No.
No?
It's a whole different thing. It's crazy. It's
I
crazy.
thought it was Schmuckanuck.
So what do we have
Anyway.
coming up next week, Denise?
So next week we're going to be discussing I love it. I want to make an offer.
That would be a buyer
That would
focused.
definitely be buyer focused next week.
But go ahead.
So make sure that you follow us, share us, like us. Come take a look at us on YouTube. What are you supposed to do on YouTube?
You subscribe to
Subscribe to the channel on YouTube so that you can go in and look at our videos anytime. Have a great night, and we will see you next Wednesday at 5:30.
And for anybody who wasn't able to chat a hello Clark, you could send a card to our office.
No. We're saying goodbye.
Okay.
Good
goodbye.
night. Thank you. Bye-bye.